You check your phone while waiting for coffee. 3 notifications. You swipe through them. 2 minutes later, sitting at your desk, you check again. Nothing new. But the urge returns 5 minutes after that. Your phone buzzes during a conversation with a friend. You glance at it for just a second. And now, you're only half listening. Half there. Half somewhere else. You tell yourself you'll finish this project without distractions. But your hand reaches for your phone before you even realize you're doing it. The tab is already open. The scroll has already begun. And now you're not working on the project. You're thinking about the message you just read. You're replying in your head. You're planning what to say next. If you decided to focus, why can't you stay focused? If this is your time, why does it feel like someone else is in control? Research from psychologist Matthew Lapierre at the University of Arizona found that smartphone dependency predicts depressive symptoms and loneliness in young adults, not just correlation. Direct prediction. The phone came first. The mental health decline followed. Nearly half of us check our phones within minutes of waking up. We reach for them during meals, during conversations, during the moments that used to be ours. We're more connected than ever, and somehow more alone. The truth is uncomfortable, but necessary. We're not just using our phones. We're fragmenting our attention across dozens of micro-interruptions every day. And once you understand what that fragmentation costs, everything about how you protect your focus begins to change. In this video, we'll explore what constant connection is actually doing to your brain. And here's what you need to know. Once you understand how attention residue operates, you can stop it before it accumulates. And that's what we will do today. Here's how we're going to do that. First, we'll break down 4 hidden ways constant connection shows up in everyday life that most people completely miss. Then, we'll explore the surprising neuroscience behind why fragmented attention works on anyone, even people who think they're immune. We'll look at what happens in your brain when you switch between tasks and why those switches cost you more than you realize. But most importantly, we're going to give you 8 practical strategies backed by psychology research that you can start using today to protect your attention. These aren't vague tips about putting your phone in another room. They're specific techniques that help you recognize attention residue before it accumulates and maintain your focus even when distractions are designed to pull you away. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to recognize when your attention is fragmenting. You'll know what's happening in your brain during these moments, and you'll have concrete tools to defend your focus without needing to abandon technology completely, become a hermit, or pretend smartphones don't exist. The science of fragmented attention. Your brain operates like a complex switching system, managing multiple streams of information at once. But unlike a computer, it can't truly multitask. Every switch between tasks leaves a trace. Every glance at your phone deposits a residue that lingers long after you look away. Decades of research in neuroscience and cognitive psychology reveal how this happens and why the attention you think you control is actually being pulled in directions you don't consciously choose. For over 15 years, business professor Sophie Leroy at the University of Washington, Bothell, studied what happens when people switch between tasks. What she discovered changed how we understand attention. When you transition from one task to another, part of your attention stays stuck on the previous task. She called this phenomenon attention residue. In the early 2000s, neurologist Marcus Rachel at Washington University School of Medicine mapped a network of brain regions that activate during rest. He called it the default mode network. This system lights up during mind wandering, during downtime, during the moments when we're not focused on external tasks. It's the neural infrastructure of our internal narrative. Around the same time, psychologist Cal Newport at Georgetown University studied how professionals manage deep work in an age of constant distraction. His research revealed that digital minimalism isn't about rejecting technology. It's about being intentional with how we use it. Together, these insights reveal something profound about modern life. We're not just distracted. We're systematically fragmenting our attention across so many surfaces that we've forgotten what sustained focus feels like. The hidden cost of constant switching. Your attention isn't disappearing because you lack willpower. It's fragmenting because you're operating in an environment specifically designed to interrupt you. And once you fragment attention, putting it back together takes far more effort than you realize. You can see this in everyday experience. You're writing an email when a notification appears. You glance at it, just for a second, 2 seconds. You return to the email, but the sentence you were writing is gone. You read what you wrote. You try to remember where you were going with it. The thought that felt clear 30 seconds ago now feels distant, blurry. 1. Attention residue, the invisible drain. This is attention residue at work. Part of your mind stayed with the notification even after you looked away. According to Sophie Leroy's research, when you switch from task A to task B, cognitive resources remain allocated to task A. You have fewer mental resources available for task B, and the more unfinished task A feels, the stronger the residue. Every time you check your phone mid-task, you create residue. Every time you switch tabs, open a new window, glance at a message, you leave part of your attention behind. By midday, you're not thinking about one thing. You're thinking about 17 things simultaneously. None of them clearly. All of them competing for the same limited mental energy. 2. The default mode network, your brain's background program. Then there's the default mode network, constantly pulling your attention inward. Marcus Rachel's research shows this network activates during rest, during the moments when you're not focused on external demands. It's the system that generates mind wandering, that creates the internal monologue, that pulls you into memories and future plans and judgments about yourself. The default mode network isn't a problem by itself. But when you never give it time to process, when you fill every idle moment with a screen, it doesn't turn off. It competes with your focus. You're trying to concentrate on a conversation, but part of your brain is still narrating what you should have said yesterday. You're trying to read, but the network is pulling you into anxieties about tomorrow. 3. Solitude deprivation, connection without satisfaction. Then there's what researchers call solitude deprivation. Research from the University of Arizona found that smartphone dependency creates a cycle. You feel lonely. You reach for connection. You scroll. You interact with dozens of people in shallow ways. And somehow, the loneliness deepens. Because connection isn't the same as conversation. A like isn't a phone call. A comment isn't a face-to-face interaction. Your brain craves real social engagement. What it gets is digital substitutes that activate social circuits without satisfying them. 4. Cognitive overload, when your brain can't recover. The fragmentation creates cognitive overload. Research published in BMC Psychology found that smartphone addiction correlates with increased stress, sleep deprivation, and anxiety in adolescence. Not because phones are inherently harmful, but because constant connection prevents the brain from recovering. You never rest. You never process. You move from one stimulus to the next without pause. Finally, there's the illusion of productivity. You feel busy. You're checking messages, responding to notifications, staying on top of everything. But research from Sophie Leroy shows that people experiencing attention residue perform significantly worse on subsequent tasks. They miss information. They make more errors. They struggle to recall details. The busyness isn't productivity. It's fragmented attention creating the appearance of activity while undermining actual performance. But attention doesn't fragment because we're weak or undisciplined. It fragments because we're operating in systems designed to capture and hold it. The phone doesn't interrupt by accident. It interrupts by design. Why does the brain respond so strongly to these interruptions? Because evolution wired us to notice novelty. Our ancestors survived by paying attention to changes in their environment. A rustle in the grass, a sudden movement, a new sound. Ignoring novelty could mean missing a threat or an opportunity. Smartphone designers understand this. Every notification is engineered to trigger your novelty response. The buzz, the light, the red badge. Your brain interprets these signals as important, even when they're not. Research published in cyberpsychology, behavior, and social networking found that excessive smartphone use predicts increased stress, especially for people who don't engage in online self-disclosure. The phone promises connection, but often delivers isolation. The intermittent reinforcement schedule makes it worse. Sometimes a notification is important. Usually, it's not. But you can't know without checking. Behavioral psychology shows that intermittent reinforcement, where rewards arrive unpredictably, creates stronger habits than consistent rewards. Slot machines use the same principle. So do social media platforms. You check because occasionally there's something worth seeing. The unpredictability keeps you checking, even when most checks yield nothing. Then there's the identity component. Research from Inner Mongolia Normal University, published in Frontiers in Psychology, found that social exclusion increases smartphone addiction through loneliness and reduced self-control. When we feel excluded, we turn to our phones for validation. We post. We check for likes. We measure our worth in engagement metrics. The phone becomes a mirror, reflecting a version of ourselves we hope others will approve. Neurologically, the constant switching activates stress responses. When Sophie Leroy studied attention residue, she found that people who anticipated time pressure experienced stronger residue and performed worse on interrupting tasks. Your brain knows you have unfinished work. It knows you should focus. But the notification arrived. The message needs a response. The tension between what you should do and what you feel compelled to do creates cognitive strain that accumulates throughout the day. The default mode network, meant to help process experiences and consolidate memories, can't function properly when you never give it uninterrupted time. Marcus Reichel's research shows the network requires periods of rest to integrate information. But if you fill every pause with your phone, the network stays partially activated while you try to focus elsewhere. It's like trying to have a conversation while someone's talking in the background. You can do it, but it takes more effort. And you miss things. Culturally, we've normalized constant availability. We expect instant responses. We feel pressure to stay connected. Research published in scientific reports found that smartphone addiction negatively correlates with subjective well-being, with loneliness mediating that relationship. The more we use our phones to combat loneliness, the lonelier we become. Because the connection isn't real. It's a simulacrum of human interaction that leaves us emptier than before. But here's what changes everything. Attention residue isn't permanent. The default mode network can function properly when given space. The habit of constant checking can be reshaped. You're not trapped in fragmented attention. You're caught in patterns that can be interrupted and redesigned. The moment you realize this, something shifts. You stop seeing your phone as the problem and start seeing your relationship with it as something you can actively shape. Freedom begins not when notifications stop, but when you stop treating every notification as urgent. You can train this awareness. Strategy 1. Create transition rituals. Start by creating transition rituals. When Sophie Leroy tested interventions for attention residue, she found that people who took less than a minute to write down where they were on a task and what they planned to do next experienced significantly less residue. Before you switch tasks, even for a quick check of your phone, pause. Note what you're working on. Note the next step. That brief moment gives your brain permission to let go. The residue doesn't accumulate because you've created closure. Try it now. Before you finish this video and move to the next thing, think about what you'll do immediately after. Name it. The simple act of planning the transition reduces the cognitive cost of switching. Strategy 2. Implement phone-free blocks. Next, implement phone-free blocks. Cal Newport's research on digital minimalism shows that the most productive people aren't those who resist all technology. They're those who create boundaries around when and how they use it. Choose specific times for focused work, 2 hours in the morning, 90 minutes after lunch. During these blocks, your phone goes in another room, not on silent, not face down, in another room. Physical distance matters because willpower depletes. You can't resist checking what's within arm's reach for hours at a time, but you can resist walking to another room. Strategy 3. Recognize attention. Residue in real time. Then practice recognition of attention residue itself. Throughout your day, notice when your mind feels scattered. Notice when you've just checked your phone and returned to work, but your thoughts keep drifting back to what you saw. That's residue. Name it. Label it. Research on metacognition shows that simply recognizing a cognitive pattern reduces its power. When you notice residue forming, you can pause, acknowledge it, and consciously redirect your attention, rather than fighting an unnamed distraction. Strategy 4. Distinguish urgent from important. Now learn to distinguish urgent from important. Most notifications feel urgent. Few are important. Before responding to any notification, ask if it requires immediate action or if it can wait an hour. Research from Sophie Leroy shows that people who complete one task before switching to another perform better on both tasks. Your brain craves completion? Give it that closure. Finish what you started before addressing the interruption. Most things can wait 30 minutes, and the quality of your work improves dramatically when you let yourself finish. Strategy 5. Practice solitude. You can deepen this through solitude practice. Not meditation, though that helps. Simple solitude. Time alone with your thoughts and no input from other minds. Marcus Rachel's research on the default mode network shows it needs time to process experiences and consolidate learning. Take walks without your phone. Sit in a park without earbuds. Drive without podcasts or music. Let your mind wander. The default mode network will activate. You'll think about random things. That's the point. That's your brain doing essential maintenance you've been preventing with constant input. Strategy 6. Batch process communication. Another practice is batch processing communication. Instead of responding to messages throughout the day, designate specific times for checking and responding. 3 times daily works for most people. Morning, midday, late afternoon. During these windows, you handle all communication at once. The rest of the time, you're unavailable. Research published in the Journal of Adolescent Health found that reducing smartphone dependency decreased depressive symptoms in young adults, not because they disconnected from everyone, but because they controlled when and how they connected. Strategy 7. Build friction into distractions. Build friction into distractions. Delete social media apps from your phone. You can still access them through a browser, but the extra steps create pause. That pause is where choice lives. Research on habit formation shows that increasing the effort required to perform a behavior reduces its frequency. You're not eliminating the option. You're creating space between impulse and action. In that space, you can decide if checking right now serves your goals or just feeds a compulsive pattern. Strategy 8. Cultivate real-world connection. Finally, cultivate real-world social connection. Research across multiple studies consistently shows that face-to-face interaction, phone calls, and video chats provide the social nourishment that text messages and social media cannot. Your brain processes tone, facial expressions, body language. Those inputs create rich social experiences that text-based communication can't replicate. Schedule weekly calls with friends. Have coffee face-to-face instead of messaging. The effort seems greater, but the return on that effort is exponentially higher. You'll feel more connected with fewer interactions because each interaction is actually nourishing. You'll notice patterns as you implement these strategies. Moments when your default mode network takes over. Moments when attention residue makes work feel harder than it should. That awareness alone is progress. Sophie Leroy's research shows that even brief transition rituals reduce residue. Marcus Reichel's work shows the default mode network functions best with regular periods of rest. Cal Newport's research demonstrates that intentional technology use creates better outcomes than either total adoption or complete rejection. The goal isn't to eliminate connection. The goal is to stop being controlled by it. Attention is a resource. How you allocate that resource determines what you accomplish, how you feel, and who you become. These strategies give you back that control. Realizing that constant connection costs more than it delivers isn't depressing, it's liberating. Changing this takes practice. We've spent years responding to every notification, checking every update, treating constant availability as normal. But step by step, you start reclaiming your attention. You start recognizing residue. You start creating boundaries. The phone is still there, but it no longer runs your day. We want to hear from you. Which of these strategies are you going to try first? Drop it in the comments. Sometimes just naming the pattern out loud is the first step toward breaking it. And if this video helped you see your relationship with technology differently, share it with someone who's been struggling with constant distraction. Hit subscribe if you want more content like this about attention, focus, and reclaiming your mental clarity. Try one strategy today. Create a transition ritual before switching tasks. Put your phone in another room during focused work. Take a walk without earbuds. Notice the residue when it forms. These small changes compound. Then ask yourself, if attention is limited, where do you want yours to go? If connection costs something, what are you willing to pay? And if constant availability prevents the depth you're seeking, what would become possible if you chose unavailability instead? Maybe freedom isn't in staying connected to everything. Maybe it's in choosing what deserves your attention and protecting that choice. Maybe focus isn't something you have or don't have. Maybe it's something you build moment by moment, decision by decision. And in that building, you discover something you'd forgotten. The quiet power of sustained attention. The clarity that emerges when you stop fragmenting your mind across 17 surfaces and bring it fully to one thing worth doing.